Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode. Obviously, March Madness is still in full swing. Final Four starts this Saturday, but NBA playoffs are just a couple weeks away, and that point of the season where standings are a big thing. You're seeing a lot of teams just try to get as many wins as possible to get a certain seed, possibly a certain matchup that they think that they like. The plans are going to be interesting because they got the standings pulled up right here. The Eastern Conference, looking just at that playing realm, about 3 or so games are holding back from the 5 seed all the way down to 10. A lot of things could happen to these next couple of weeks. In terms of the Western Conference plan, pretty much locked in. The only thing that could change, the Suns could jump up and possibly snag the 6th seed, but it looks like the Western Conference plan is pretty much locked in. But we can talk about some NBA. This episode, I have a list of questions, kind of just getting us into is the flow of NBA going into the playoffs, of like some teams that we think have more pressure on, players we think have pressure on, just surprise dark horse teams that can make a run in this playoffs and things of that nature. But we can start out with some college, a little bit of college talk before we get into the NBA. Just talking about some guys that we have liked throughout the tournament and what guys have kind of risen their draft stock going into this kind of drafting process.
Listen, I'm not going to do the whole Duke thing. If you've been on your phone, you can just assume I'm a Duke hater because you'd be right if you assume that. I'm not going to do the whole Duke thing and make this a whole March Madness episode. I'm going to try to keep it focused on the players. But man, that's what you call a year maker. Seeing Duke go down like that. And just like, now that we're not prisoners of the moment, it's now 4 days later, we can still say that was one of the best March Madness moments ever, and definitely the best I've maybe seen in my lifetime. So what a cool thing to have with that. That's the basic thing to say. But about the actual players, look, Duke, I'll start there. I mean, flat out, we've been a little bit critical of him just because of kind of his position and his style of play. But Cam Boozer's a straight-up baller. Cam Boozer, I've been critical of Cole Pete, straight-up baller. Like those, I think it was a big win for those two guys, kind of that weird archetype. Like it's like, hey, we know they're amazing and they're very physically gifted. And now it's more of like, hey, like what team's going to kind of let them rock out with that style? I think they both proved that they're just way too good enough of basketball players to even question that type of stuff. Shout to Cole Pete, shout to Cam Boozer. Two different tiers in the NBA draft world, but I was really impressed with them. I really was. And I mean, of course, right? Like we've always kind of had Braylon Mullins in that, like lottery, late first round realm, and not saying that shot, because he actually played terrible up until that shot. Not saying that shot amps him up, but it's just kind of interesting because I saw a lot of people being like someone would post like where he's projected in a mock draft, and the comments would be like, bro's just here because that one shot or whatever. It's like, if you followed anything all year long, UConn's not really a team that's like, they don't have many big name players by any means, but he has been in that same exact spot on mock drafts all year long. Shout out to him for that shot. But no, I'll let you touch on any other guys you were thinking of. I thought Bennett Sturge showed like, hey, at absolute floor throughout this run I was made, he's a guy who can come be a bench unit commander and be ready to play right away. And that's what we said in our mock draft episodes. Been really impressed with him. Makes amazing decisions, super steady. Like just one of the most confident players I've watched in this tournament because it just like looks like he's always like one step ahead of everyone else, doesn't second guess himself. Knows when to take the shot, knows when to take a big-time shot, like a tough step back. He doesn't ever settle, but he's always ready to take that big-time shot, and it seems like he always hits it. Question about him is just who's going to give him that key? Who's going to let him rock out, right? Because it'd be interesting to see him in like a off-ball role, which we haven't been able to see. And then, man, last one I'll do, and you can touch on some other guys. Keaton Wagler. Wow. Like, he really showed he's got that big game gene in him. Big time guard. You've seen the Penny Hardaway spin around, step back. Wow, like that kid is special. This class just continues to prove how special it is throughout March Madness. And there's a lot of years where there's a bunch of good freshmen and no one really cares how they play in March Madness. That's why when we first did our video, I was like, I'm not really too worried about March Madness. I kind of think where guys are is where they are. But to get all these guys that we're going to be seeing in NBA jerseys next year have a chance to put their skills on display in the tournament and pretty much everyone step up and do it was really awesome. And the league is in some good hands going forward. And all these teams that we're not going to be talking about today that are eliminated may have a star player next year.
Yeah, I can kind of piggyback off some things that you said. obviously just wrapping back around to Cam Boozer, I feel like I've figured out who he reminds me of in the league and where I think his fit is. I don't think he has this leader of a franchise ceiling
I agree.
and franchise saving guy like a Darren Peterson can have, like an AJ DeBounce could have. I even think somebody like Caleb Wilson might have a little bit higher ceiling in that aspects in some ways, but they're still kind of in that same tier. I think Cam Boozer, it might also not have the craziest ceiling, but I think might be one of the more safest prospects I've seen in a long time. Just when you're looking at what he's going to give you, he's going to give you really good rebounding, positional size at the 4, smart, super IQ. That's one thing I think that has shown in this tournament a ton is when he's obviously dominating the game in the low block, in the mid post. He's obviously dominating there, but some of the passes he's making outside of the doubles and getting his guys open, I think is really showing in this tournament because they are focused on him on the offensive side of the ball. So I think his IQ and his rebounding, and he might not show it a whole ton because of Duke and the way they play, but he's somebody that can have the ability to space and put the ball on the floor and make some plays when needed. But I think his role is going to be like a weird mix of like, not saying he kind of like plays like these guys, because there's one guy I'm gonna name that he doesn't really play like a whole ton, but like it's like Kevin Love, kind of LaMarcus Aldridge, true power forward kind of realm kind of guy, to where he can step out in space, he can operate on the low block, he can play make out of the low block, and he can rebound his ass off. And I think that's something that he makes him a safe prospect. You know what you're kind of getting with Cam Boozer, in my opinion, compared to like Darren Peterson has this high ceiling. AJ DeBounce has this high ceiling. And I'm pretty safe on those guys too. But Cam Boozer's floor, I think, is so solid and just being such a solid, sound NBA player. And that's just kind of where I'm at with him. But now,
and that's
will he go
okay.
top 3? Yeah, like, I don't know if I have no idea where he's going to go. Because I've been seeing a lot of trendings towards Darius Acuff going a little bit higher than probably people thought pre-tournament. But I don't think he goes over Cam Boozer. I think Cam Boozer, got to see how the lottery shakes out, but he's somebody to where if he went to the right situation, he's just an immediate plug-and-play guy, and that's where I'm at with him.
I agree, and we've said it a million times, this draft class is so good that almost comes off as we're downplaying him or hating on him.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with the number 3, 3 or 4 definitely he's probably the number 3 prospect. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the number 3 prospect for us to be saying he just has a really high floor. And I still think he has an all-star ceiling. When we say AJ and Darren have these really high ceilings, we're talking all-NBA level stuff. So that's where it is completely fine. And I agree. You also touched on his IQ and his passing. It would be nice if his twin brother actually had that gene as well.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not going to. I said I wasn't going to do the Duke stuff. So we can move on. Oh, man.
I'm glad you brought up Keaton Wagner.
It's so sweet. It's so sweet. I'm sorry.
Nah, I'm glad you brought up Keaton Wagner as well, because he showed out in the game to send them to the Final Four. He's been hooping this tournament, and he's not the most stat sheet like stuffer kind of guy. When you're looking at you got to watch the game to see him and his impact and the way he takes care of the ball, the way he flows within the flow of the offense, the way he lets the game come to him. Things of that nature are things that I look at he could really be a plug and play guy anywhere, wherever he goes. He's another one of those guys who are like, I think just with some of the teams I'm looking at and where he could possibly get drafted to, I think he rises to stock up a little bit. Like, I think he put himself maybe above Kingston Flemings in a world, because I think Kingston Flemings had a tough couple of weeks, and the way Houston went out against Illinois, it was just bad offensively. And I just think Keaton Wagner might be a little bit above. If I had to redo a big board, I think I put Keaton Wagner above Kingston Flemings as of right now.
I'm okay with that. My only thing with Flemings is I want to say that NBA GMs aren't going to overreact to a completely flawed Houston offense that he had to carry and judge him based on that. And they probably look at him as such a safe pick because he's the most aggressive defensively out of this guard class. So I think that helps him a lot on draft night. Just any GM who has a chance to take him is going to know that he is going to bring at least this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he plays. I think he's got a lot more than this guy. But, like, remember when Davion Mitchell snuck into the top 10 just because he showed a lot of offense when Baylor won that national title, but all year they knew what type of defender he was? I don't think he is the level of Davion Mitchell defensively. I don't think Davion Mitchell is the level of Kingston Fleming ceiling-wise offensively. But, I mean, shit, like, I kind of like that comp a little bit because on Baylor's run, they were running straight ISO ball with Davion Mitchell, and he was just cooking shit up and being the best defender in the whole tournament. And I think like if Houston had a better offensive infrastructure around him, and that's what I've said about Darren too. Like Darren this, Darren that. Guys, he had no 3-point shooters on his team. Anyone who ever said Acuff over Darren Peterson, you are out of your fucking mind. Because if Darren Peterson was in Cal's system in Arkansas, and I'm a Kansas fan, Bill Self runs a great program. I more mean just everything included. And Darren was able to play in a fast-paced offense like that while still being able to slow it down like he can and be the shooter he is. Dude, he's putting up 23 a night also. That's no Acuff slight because Darren's also bigger and bringing better defense too. So that's just, listen, Acuff's an incredible and electrifying player, but the shit has to stop. In the tournament, there was 1 3-pointer made outside of Darren, or 2 total 3-pointers made outside of Darren Peterson's like 10 in the 2 games, or 9, or whatever the fuck, 7. I think he made 7. Cole Rosario made 1. Melvin Council made 1 in 2 games. I mean, that is fucking unbelievable for a guy who needs spacing, and whatever team takes him is going to get that. A little draft rant about the Acuff stuff. I love Darius Acuff, but there's a lot of things about his game that we can't ignore when it comes to evaluating NBA prospects. And I know all the NBA guys are getting excited about this college class, but we have to sometimes say some stuff works really well, a lot better in college than it does in the NBA. The way he plays on the defensive side of the basketball is not going to fucking slide in the NBA. That's all I have to say about it. Electrifying offensive player, though. No hate to him. He's amazing.
I'm glad you brought up Braylon Mullins because I've come to the decision that I think he's going to stay. Because I'm looking at him at the NBA level and the way he's struggling in college and how he struggles sometimes. I think he needs to stay with Hurley 1 more year and be that veteran, more sophomore guy in next year's class that can kind of be more considered as a real competitor for the lottery. I just think this year with how loaded that position is, kind of that 1-2 position, I just think it would be in his best interest to stay. And then another guy I'm super high on, he's going to stay. And I think he's going to be a lotto pick next year. I mean, Tyler Tanner, Vanderbilt, watch the fuck out for them next year because they're going to make a run.
He's incredible.
It sucks that they went out to Nebraska in the way they did because that shot almost went down. But Tyler Tanner is a 6 foot, probably 5'11" guard that plays like he's 6'4" with his athleticism. He's a lot better on defense than you would think, and he's just a big time player. A lot of things work really good in college compared to the NBA. But his shit translates in what he does.
100%. And I think he has long arms, too. I think he checks out as a wingspan guy, for sure. At least it looks like it. I'll say about that, too. I have a hot take. North Carolina will hire Mark Byington, Vanderbilt's head coach, and Tyler Tanner will be the point guard for the Tar Heels next season.
That'd be sick. Sick.
That would be sick. And your pops would love that. Like, I got to say. Yeah. So you tell him I made that take because I think there's a real possibility of that. And I don't even think Tyler Tanner's a transfer guy. Like, if Byington stays, he's staying at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's an incredible place to be. Nashville, who the fuck wouldn't want to go to college in Nashville, Tennessee?
It would be I was just going to say it could be like a Bennett search to Iowa kind of thing with McCollum going. Like, it could be something like that.
And especially if you're a point guard, like point guards and coaches go hand in hand together. It's like, hey, he's going to let me rock out. So I'm going to fucking go with him no matter what. I like his system. I know how to average 20 in his system. I know how to win in his system.
And you get him the North Carolina NIL budget. Yeah, it's going to be.
Boy. Oh, man. And that's just, I've just heard rumors of Mark Byington going there because, like, their top dogs are going for, like, Tommy Lloyd and Dusty May both made the Final Four. Tommy Lloyd still could take that job, but Dusty May and him both made a Final Four, and they both already have, like, final destination jobs, like Michigan and Arizona. I don't see the logic of going from Michigan or Arizona to a North Carolina. I just don't. Personally, I get it. Maybe you make a little bit more, but there's legacy involved. Arizona is an incredible place to live. Michigan has maybe the best fan base in college sports, whether you like it or not. Just thoughts for talking a little college basketball landscape. But the only other point I wanted to make about Braylon Mullins and why it's good for him to stay too, dude, any NBA scout will tell him right now that you're going to be a 10-plus year guy in the NBA, whether you go this year or not. So, like, with how good of a shooter he is, you will play 10 years in the NBA no matter what. So go show us a little more than you're shooting next year with a bigger role, more responsibility, work on your physicals, and you're just going to have a bigger rookie deal. You're just going to get drafted higher. The most obvious you should stay ever. I mean, I get it. Anything can happen. Injuries, shit happens. Crazy stuff can happen. But I think with a guy with that level of shooting and IQ, he's a very smart player as well. you're a 10-year guy in the NBA. So I love your thought of him that he should stay, and I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of guys with how stacked this class is that could really benefit from staying.
There's one more guy I want to bring up before we transition to the NBA, and he's been on a tear, but they've kind of just been taking care of opponents who we haven't brought up yet. Please, GMs of the NBA, don't look at the age. If you're in any position to compete, Milwaukee, Golden State, Yaxel Lendenberg has been on an absolute fucking tear this tournament. We're probably getting the best college matchup I've seen in the tournament in some time with Arizona, Michigan. Like 1 seed versus 1 seed to go to the national championship. Like,
I love it.
With how two teams have been playing, Koa Pete, Yaxel Lendenberg, and then we got Keaton Wagner on the other side against Dan Hurley and UConn. Like, it's just so, and Brain Bird, like, this is just crazy. Of all the talent, like, oh, man.
I want you to go in on Yaxel again. I gotta say real quick though too. Remember we made our March Madness. I think we did a topic when we did our March Madness bracket. What guys could benefit from a run? I just think it's cool to kind of look ahead now. It's like, okay, who are the guys who got to the who are the draft guys who got to the Final Four? It was Keaton Wagler, Yaxel, Braden Burries, and Koa Pete. Cool group. I think we like those guys. So I'm glad they did, because I think Braden Burries very likely could be a Buck, my squad, and I think Yaxel Lendenberg could very likely be a Golden State Warrior, and vice versa. Like, I think that both those guys, those picks would make sense. Even though you guys have a lot of guards, I still think Braden Burries is just a guy who fits a team that has like a Giannis or Steph. Think about Yaxel. Let me just go real quick about it.
Go ahead.
Listen, I absolutely am in love with his game. I think he is an amazing basketball player. He has got to be one of the most cocky fucking players, though, that we have seen in a long time. I mean, dude, okay, he already acts like it, and I respect it. Like, it adds to his game. But the comment he made about I was pissed off they put a freshman on me, brother, you are 24. Every single person they put on you is going to be younger than you. and either way, the freshmen are the best players in college basketball nowadays. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? Like, what do you want them to do? You're the oldest player in the fucking country. Everyone who guards you is going to be younger than you. Like, you're just saying shit. I love him, though. I actually love his game, and I love his confidence. It's sweet. It really is. But he is so cocky. And I like it, but he is so fucking cocky. He really is, dude. Not to get on my fucking radio show vibes. I know we're just trying to talk ball here, but I got a little bit of that in me. When I see something, I got to call it out, bro. I mean, golly. He is fucking insufferable. He's letting the ball roll on the ground. Ball roll on the ground. Just fucking taunting him while they're up 30. He gets his ass dunked on by Jacoby Gillespie, and he's just like smiling, shaking his head. Like, he doesn't give a fuck, bro. I respect it.
Yeah.
Shout out Yaxel.
They handled Tennessee, but he's been on
that was not even watchable.
And he's somebody that I think is going to be that one older guy that does get taken in the top 10, 11, depending on how the lottery shakes out. But we can kind of transition.
Yeah,
done talking about college
ball. We talked about that
we'll
longer
than
I thought we would.
Yeah, we'll talk about college ball later down the line. We'll have a mock coming out eventually once we get lottery situated and everything else like that. But we can hop into some NBA. Now, we'll kind of go off some questions, and that will kind of get us into talking about some different teams in the Eastern Conference. Probably won't talk about anything below kind of the play-in teams. But we can start out with, what team has the most pressure on them this playoff run? And I don't really think there's a whole lot, because I think OKC coming off of a chip, San Antonio's young, Denver's still proven, and they already got their chip this decade. Like, I don't know. Let me know.
Okay, I'll answer that first, because I had a few teams I wanted to touch on. You mentioned OKC right there. My only problem was with I'm not sure if you're saying they don't have pressure, because there's always pressure when you
yeah.
I know what you meant, though. I know what you meant. They already got the monkey off their back with winning a title with Shea and everything. Right, they're the champs. But I think that's a reason that they should have pressure. The reason I agree with you that I don't think they will get treated like they do is because of the injuries. Like, I know Jalen Williams is back, but he's kind of been in and out of the lineup all year. Shea dealt with an injury for a while. I know he's going to be healthy. The reason I think that they deserve to have a little pressure, though, is they're not going to get to – they have the three highest – they pay three guys all on max deals. They're not going to get to keep bringing back all their guys. And I know they have Stan Presti, a guy you trust with bringing in talent. They make that trade for Jared McCain, a guy who should be able to add. They get another lottery pick this year, I believe, or at least mid-first round or whatever they'll probably be around. They have someone's pick in that range.
They have 2 first rounders.
Clippers. Yeah,
they have 2 first rounders in the teens.
Yeah, so it's like they're going to be able to reload, but you just won an NBA championship. You're in your window for a dynasty, so there's pressure. There's also pressure because the San Antonio Spurs have absolutely embarrassed you guys this year. And if that becomes a Western Conference Finals, that is just a big series. So in the West, that's a team I'd look at, but I agree. They're nowhere near at the top of the pressure. Another team that I wanted to, when I first was looking through the standings of who has real pressure on, I kind of agree with you. Like, there's not much because every team has a fucking excuse almost.
Yeah.
The Houston Rockets, I originally thought them because they made that move trading for Kevin Durant. But I look back at the move, and I feel like they got him for a pretty decent price. I really do. I do feel like they did, and I also just don't have much expectations for them in this playoffs. If I did, I would maybe say there's more pressure. My other team.
I agree. I agree with the Houston Rockets thing.
Yeah.
Because their season for me went awry. And you can bring up the All-Star burner shit that happened at the All-Star break, but I'm more focused on the loss of Fred VanVleet going into the year.
Too.
Yeah, and Steven Adams. So Fred VanVleet going out, that was your true veteran point guard going into the season. He gets hurt with the ACL. He's done for the year. And then Steven Adams, who's one of the best offensive rebounders, if not the best offensive rebounder at the 5 spot, pairing him up with Sengun, who is a porous defender. That is what made the Houston Rockets very good last year, is the pairing of Steven Adams out from Sengun, because Sengun is skilled, can play on the perimeter a little bit more, and then you have Steven Adams anchoring the defense. I think losing them two, and them both being veterans on this young lead team, I think kind of killed their ceiling. I think Houston's a first-round exit. It might not matter who they play. I think their best shot might be, like, who they play right now?
LA today. If they stay at 6, they're going to.
And if you asked me a month or two ago, I think I would have said Houston. But right now, I don't think they would beat the Lakers in a series.
I don't either. And I also, even if they move it to 5 and past Minnesota, who they're tied with right now, they're not beating Denver round 1.
Mm-hmm.
Without Steven Adams, they're not. Like, that's the thing. He was such a difference maker. One, because they had such a size advantage against Golden State when with those lamps they could run. But, like, if you're going to beat Jokic in the first round, you need bodies in and out. Bodies. You need Adams. They're a first-round exit. I'm right with you.
You can get into your team that you were going to bring up for pressure.
This is my biggest one. And I don't even know if it's particularly close for me. I want to put a little pressure on the Knicks just because of, all the stuff. They just always have pressure anyways. My biggest team is the Cleveland Cavaliers and let's just call it how it is. Listen, I like the trade because you had to at this point. Whether you traded for James Harden in the Darius Garland swap, it seemed like this year, if they don't make the ECF this year, something's going to happen with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Something could potentially even be happening with Donovan Mitchell. It felt like they went all in on the James Harden move. There's even more pressure on James Harden as well, being a guy who doesn't always rise to the occasion in the playoffs. I don't know I can't remember really how he played last year against Denver when they went to 7 games. I think it was better than what he gave in Philly. He wasn't showing up for playoff games in Philly. But he has to show up this year. Donovan Mitchell's a proven playoff star. Donovan Mitchell was all they had last year. He was taking 30-plus shots a night for them. And the pace, they ran into Team of Destiny. I'm not going to get into last year because they were dealing with injuries. Ty Jerome was taking the second most shots per game. Mobley was hurt all year. Garland couldn't stay healthy. This year, though, you have it all together. And I believe in them a little bit. But if you don't at least make the ECF, something has to change. And that change might set you back very far because of some moves that you have made. Something has to change with that front court. You have to cash in on it while it still is worth something. Jared Allen, I love Jared Allen, but when he doesn't show up, it is scary for them sometimes. Cleveland Cavaliers have to have pressure. They have been such a great organization. This is something people don't talk about. I'm not going to get to ramble too much. I was really excited to talk NBA, but here's the deal. Since LeBron James has been a Cavalier, I'm not trying to get into big narratives or anything. This has been an extremely high-class organization all the way through. Even those down years, I mean, they would overperform with terrible teams. With a team that no one expected anything from, Darius Garland and Lauri Markkanen in that squad, they get to a play-in. They win games. I just look at the Cavs as an organization that makes great moves all the time. They're a high-class organization. You need to get to a conference finals. They haven't been to one since LeBron has left, and they have the team to do it. I just think there's a lot of pressure on the Cavs. I mean, I could ramble about all these different factors that go into it. You're healthy now. There's no excuse now. And Donovan Mitchell's the guy who can do it in this East. The only team I right now really would take over them, I'm 50-50 on the Knicks because I think Brunson's special in the playoffs. I think Boston, I'm ready to take Boston maybe over them. So there's no excuse not to make the conference finals, especially in that 4-5 slot. You win that 4-5 matchup, you're going up against maybe a Cade-less Pistons, maybe a Cade just getting back on the Pistons team. It's a perfect opportunity to upset the 1 seed Pistons and go to the ECF. The most pressure is on them by far, to me.
I had 2 teams down. I had the Knicks and then I had the Cavs. Since you went on about the Cavs and talked about them, I can give my side for the Knicks and why I think the Knicks have pressure.
Yep. Sorry for rambling. My goodness. But
no,
holy shit.
No, you're good. We ain't talked NBA. Yeah.
We
ain't talked NBA in a minute.
I got a lot of thoughts to get off.
The Knicks, for me, I'm just going to say this. The Knicks, for me, come down to one player. I know what Jalen Brunson I'm getting in the playoffs. One of the best player performers in the sport. It's your finals MVP, isn't it? It's not even Karl Anthony Towns. That's the crazy thing. Because at this point, I know what I'm getting from Karl Anthony Towns. But I'm talking about Mr. 5 first-round picks that is a no-show on the court at times. I'm going to need more from Mikal Bridges come playoff time. I kind of know what I'm getting from OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby is a very consistent player. But there's times where you're like, oh, I forgot Mikal Bridges is out on the court. And this is somebody you gave up 5 first-round picks for. I know you have the Nova ties and everything else like that. But in my opinion, it might be a hot take. Who's been more valuable? Who do you think would have been more valuable? Mikal Bridges or Dante DiVincenzo?
I'm going to be honest. With the firepower that he was given New York when he was there, Dante DiVincenzo right now, I can't say that because defensively Mikal is still great and he plays all the time. Yeah. But playoff DiVincenzo, when they had him, is doing more.
My whole thing with the Knicks is they need to see more from Mikal Bridges. They need to see more from Mikal Bridges. That's just me. I think Mikal Bridges needs to be, I'm going to say this. If they go to the finals and they get out of the East, there's going to be at least 2 to 3 games where they need Mikal Bridges to have over 15 to 20 points. Because there's going to be a game where they're doubling Brunson, and there's going to be a game Karl Anthony Towns doesn't have it because he can't be inconsistent. So they're going to need somebody to step up, and it's going to have to be somebody like Mikal Bridges to step up. And he did last year in the playoffs with the big-time shots against Boston to take the lead in that series and the big-time stops on Jason Tatum in that series. But it's just like,
he had a moment.
You need him to be
a playoff moment.
Yeah. He needs to be more consistent on the offensive side of the ball for this Knicks offense. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Knicks because the Knicks, in my opinion, there's never been a better time for the New York Knicks to make it to the finals than this fucking season. The Celtics, yes, they've turned their head and they have Jason Tatum coming back and he's looked great off the Achilles. I think Boston's so vulnerable because I think their big man rotation is weak and can be neutralized in a series. I think the Pistons without Cade, big time hole over there in the 4-5 matchup, whoever has to play Detroit in the second round. And I'll get to a thought about that in a second. Then you're telling me the Hawks have flaws. The Toronto Raptors have flaws. The Sixers are never healthy. Cleveland's always a no-show in the playoffs, and you've already beat them in the playoffs in the past couple of years. So looking at that, there should be no question marks about the Knicks getting to the finals this year. The only team I think could beat the Knicks in a series, maybe Boston, depending on how JT's looking in a playoff setting.
Why not Cleveland?
Until I'm to the point with Cleveland, and I have a lot of pressure on Cleveland, pretty much for everything that you've said. But it's just like, it just seems like everybody outside Donovan Mitchell come playoff time folds every season. It seems like it's the Donovan Mitchell, and I know they had injuries last year with Garland, Mobley, and everything like that. But it's been like this for even years prior to last year, where you're looking at the Cavs and it's like, fuck, Darius Garland was a no-show tonight. Evan Mobley was a no-show tonight, even when they were healthy. So at some point, I think James Harden will help a ton compared to Darius Garland, because I think James Harden's just a better player for what the Cavs want right now. But I just look at the Cavs as, I hate to say it like this, until you do it, what do you want me to believe?
Yeah, no, I'm with that.
At least I've seen the Knicks get to the ECF and lose tough 7-game series and everything else like that. I've just seen the Cavs kind of, yes, they've dealt with injuries. I will admit that. But I've also seen the Cavs just go games with folding like they did to the Pacers last year.
I agree. My only thing with that, though, is I really like how Cleveland matches up with New York.
Mm-hmm.
I think being able, maybe you could bring up something about like a matchup for Brunson, but at the end of the day, if the New York's just going to end up living and dying by Brunson anyways, offensively, so it's not like you get what I'm saying. If he's going to make shots, he's
Yeah.
going to make shots. I hate to simplify it that much. I really, really though love like the idea of Cleveland's twin towers against this New York team. I just do, mainly because I know Mitchell Robinson's a beast on the glass. I just like the matchup. The reason I'm questioning you on that one is because these are the two most complete teams in the East. Boston's playing the best basketball, but like you mentioned, their big depth is a concern, and that's really important in a playoff series, especially when you look around the East with just you run into the Cavs with their bigs, you run into Jalen Duren on the Pistons, you run into Cat, like whatever it is. I just think that like I look at Knicks Cavs as my ECF right now. If I had to predict, I don't know, man, because you said Boston too. Either way, I was just trying to ask the question of what, like, outside of it being something you haven't seen before, is there a real concern? Like, is there any reason like do you just see Jalen Brunson being unstoppable to the Cavs and them just relying on Donovan Mitchell to go get 40 to match him every game?
No, because you can rely on somebody like James Harden to run the show, and ever since James Harden's got into town, Jared Allen has been a way more consistent offensive option, and I think a big sleeper for the Cavs, and why I will say I have Cavs pressure here, Knicks pressure here, so I have the Cavs having more pressure.
Okay.
So I didn't want to put them on the same tier, but I put the Cavs under more pressure is because you also have the depth. I think yes, you brought in James Harden. You also have Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis.
That's an amazing playoff. That's an incredible playoff bench. That is,
and guess what?
I didn't even mention
you just
them
brought
with
back
the
Matt
pressure.
Strus.
Just brought back Matt Strus. I forgot about him. Him and Dennis can take turns on shit. Keon Ellis can guard Jalen Brunson just as good as any other guard in the East.
So, like, when I'm looking at the Cavs have the most complete roster to get there. But I also just saw the Knicks go to the ECF last year. Cavs haven't done that. So it's like, I think the Cavs this year have more pressure because they sped up the timeline going and getting James Harden.
They do too.
But I think the Knicks are just a slight second. In terms of the league, in terms of the Western Conference, pressure-wise, I think the Timberwolves got a little bit of pressure. I think the Timberwolves have a little bit of pressure to get over the hump.
I agree.
Back-to-back Western Conference Finals. I think they have a little bit of pressure.
And they also like have just, yeah, they 100% pressure, and they should. That's okay. But I think it's good we're on the same page that the East is where the pressure's at, because the East is wide. The East is open. We went into this year saying these teams need to win the East. This is their year with Jason Tatum out. This is their year. Look at Boston. Look where they're at. We should have known. And the West is one of those deals where it's like there's teams that you might run into that we get why you lost that series. That's right. Where I think the pressure in the East is more like anyone could beat anyone, and I wouldn't be surprised. If Atlanta, I wanted to say this. Listen, this might be kind of spoiling because I don't even want to pick them because I think the Cavs will win. Atlanta has the defensive team. Atlanta has the defense for a playoff series to give the Cavs a fucking hard time in the first round. I think the Cavs win it. They win the series. But shit, tensions could rise in that Cleveland locker room when they're fighting for their life in a Game 7 against Atlanta, which I think Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, they get that job done in Game 7. But just look at all the guys that Atlanta is going to be able to play. And when the game slows down and it gets really ugly, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Jalen Johnson looks like in a playoff series.
That's why I'm glad they brought in CJ McCollum. I'm glad they brought in CJ McCollum for this exact reason.
And I haven't been watching as many NBA games in March as I'd have liked to. But I will say, every time I've checked in and tuned in and watched the YouTube highlights, which I know that's a fucking normie thing to do, but CJ McCollum has just been, he's been all world. He's been everything they could have asked for with that trade they made. They have a lot of guys that just are going to be absolute like luxuries for a playoff series that gets ugly. Mm-hmm. And I'm all about that.
We can go into next question would be, is there a specific player, same question, that has a lot of pressure on him? Because I only have one. Because I can go and talk about my one and see if it gives you any other ideas.
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead first. I'm interested to hear who you have.
I would say the only player, not the only player that has a lot of pressure on him, because I think you can make a case for Wemby, first playoffs. I think you can make a case for SGA, Jokic. I'm going to put it on Luka Doncic because I would hate to see the Lakers play as good as they are and see them get into a situation where they're playing this good, getting hot going into the playoffs, everything's starting to click, and then it's the same reasons that we've seen in the past of why Luka's teams lose. And he's just getting attacked all game long, the rim protection isn't holding up, and he's just getting matchup hunted the entire night. And I think there's a lot of pressure on him because that's kind of the narrative with Luka-led teams, is him defensively in the playoffs. Now, when I'm looking at their matchups, I like them against the Houston. I think Phoenix would get interesting, but I think the Lakers would get out of that series. But I think the Lakers have some tough, if they don't at least get to the second round. And it sucks because there's a world where they play Minnesota in the first round again. And I think Minnesota would beat them again.
No, I don't. I don't think so. And that sounds crazy. You have, and you know what? I might look stupid saying that because every single year Minnesota just shows up different in the playoffs. I don't see it this year. Luka's on a whole different type of timing. I think the Lakers have addressed some problems that they had last year with their rotation. Mm-hmm. So I just don't. I'm interested to hear why you would say that they would beat them. My only problem with you saying that there's pressure on Luka, I agree with everything you said with the defensive stuff, but Luka's gonna show up. Though.
Yeah.
If the Lakers lose, it's not Luka's fault at all to me. That's my disagreement with you right now. And I can sit here and just dick ride Luka and Brown and say, no, they'll beat Minnesota when everything has shown me Minnesota might. But Minnesota, at least to me, is not the same team they were last year with as much juice. I think losing Nikhil is a big problem, one. And I think that this year also Luka, listen, this is going to sound like the broken record stuff, but Luka is in way better shape than he was last year. Luka is top 10 in steals in the NBA right now. I'm not going to try to say he's this great defender. He's going to be the scoring champ. If the Lakers lose, it's going to be because Austin Reeves doesn't show up. It's going to be because all of a sudden these guys that they've been relying on making shots all year shoot under 30% from three against the Timberwolves. The only thing I want to see more from Luka is him get back to having the rim pressure he used to get.
I just think when I'm looking at matchups, I think Lakers would beat a Houston team with how Houston's looking right now. But if it gets to like the last week of the season and it's like, oh, we're playing Houston, and then all of a sudden, bam, some crazy shit happens and you're playing Minnesota in the first round again, I'm just like, damn, then you're going Minnesota, possibly Denver in the second round, or OKC or San Antonio, depending on how everything shakes out. Then you're just like, damn, like that's just a tough draw. And I would hate to see the Lakers go out in round one again to the same team. Yeah. And it could be the same reasons. Just last year, I agree with you on the Luka being in the shape part, but last year it was like, it got overwhelmed by how athletic Minnesota plays and how they show up in the playoffs and the defensive intensity that they play with. And from looking at the roster construction here, yes, you added DeAndre Ayton. The same story could have unfolded, but I do think they would have a way better shot this year than last year. Because when I saw the matchup last year, I saw it early on. I was like, there's no fucking way this LA team is beating the Minnesota Timberwolves in a series. Because it was 3-6 last year, and the Minnesota Timberwolves were a 6 seed. So I'm just sitting here, I'm just like, there's just no fucking way Minnesota is losing the series. I'm not saying it could play out because it could play out differently, but I'm thinking Luka and the narrative, another first round exit, that would just be a tough blow. Back-to-back first round exits in LA for your first 2 years. I know it was a year and a half, but like looking at that, I would just be like, damn, back-to-back first round exits for Luka out west would be tough.
No, I am 100% on the same page with you about the pressure. And also, if we're just being straight up honest, I hate to do it. Like, we're talking ball. At the end of the day, we talked about the Knicks, we talked about the Lakers. When those teams are in the playoff picture, it's always immense pressure, like every single year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With those families.
And I think this is the last year we have Bron in LA as well. I also think that's an off-season topic, though. But that I only had Luka just because I was just looking at the teams out west, and I'm just like, SGA MVP just coming off a chip. Jokic solidified, one of the greats. Vic, first playoff series. You can't put that immense pressure on a young guy going into the playoffs being the leader. Kevin Durant, nobody's really taking the Rockets uber seriously. Devin Booker with the Suns, they're kind of just the surprise of the West. Nobody's taking the Clippers crazy serious. Steph and the Warriors, they've had a year from hell. And then out east, it's like Cade's injured, Tatum coming off the injury, Jaylen Brown's playing great, but they don't really have a ton of pressure. It's Boston. They've been playing great.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson, you could say, is up there with Luka, but they just came off the ECF. We got to see what the Knicks do. Him and Donovan Mitchell are kind of in the same tier. Yes, they have pressure, but they've always shown up in the big-time moments and everything else like that. Not saying Luka hasn't, but it's just like in terms of the Lakers this year with what they have and how good they have been playing, it would be tough to see them go out in the first round.
I agree with you. You definitely talked me into that. Like, they have a lot of pressure. The reason Boston doesn't have any pressure, obviously, is like, yeah, Tatum's back, but if they lose, it's just like, dude, we barely had him.
It was a gap year. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a gap year anyways. We're playing with house money right now.
They're the 2 seed in a gap year with 50 wins.
And you know what's the fucking crazy part about that? We should have seen that shit coming. Are you kidding me? Joe Mazzulla gets to go into a year where he's doubted, and he still has a all-NBA player in Jaylen Brown. He still has Derek White, who's the best role player in basketball. Peyton Pritchard gets a chance at opportunity. I mean, it was obvious. In the East week, we should have been saying it's the best year to have a gap year. Like, a week East, excuse me. Like, come on. Player, I already said his name once. I'll say I think Jalen Johnson has pressure in his first playoff because I think he's a guy who a lot of people believe in heavily. So that's a guy who comes to mind. But at the same time, if he's not incredible, it's his first playoff series. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sneakily has a lot of pressure right now. And listen, like I said about Luka, he's gonna rise to the occasion. He is a legendary playoff performer. But I just feel like with the Wemby matchup, like if he is in the WCF against the Spurs, I'm not trying to get all narrative talk based ESPN bullshit right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has got to win that series against the Spurs. He is the most capable player in the NBA, I would say, that I could put a backpack pressure on. I'm not even joking. Listen, I knew Shai was going to be great for a long time. I didn't know he was going to be inevitably great this soon. Like, no, I'm not going to say this soon, but like he is like legitimately like one of those players that is inevitable right now. He's in the inevitable class as a jump shooter. And I think that it is very important. I'm not going to do the legacy thing and all that, but for best player in the league talks going forward, that he handles business in Wemby's first playoffs against the Spurs, especially against a team that has been their kryptonite. I'm going to call that pressure. I'm not trying to do the bullshit storyline hunting, but let's be honest. If that series comes, that's going to be the best basketball. That's going to be the best series we've seen in a long time. And I think the pressure's on Shai there. Because Wemby can lose to the defending champs. That's okay. People are going to defend him. He's got a few more years before he's the villain and he's him. You know how this shit works. Shai's got to handle business right now while he's on the Big Bad Thunder. Especially with the injuries. I don't know if we're going to get, like, they barely snuck by Indiana in the finals last year, and they got 26 a night from J-Dub. We're not getting 26 a night J-Dub with how his health's been this year. I don't believe in it. I love J-Dub to death. He's one of my favorite players to watch. We're not getting 26 a night J-Dub.
Halliburton tore his Achilles after having
MVP J-Dub.
Tyrese Halliburton started out Game 7 hot, tore his Achilles.
Like, come on.
They still barely squeaked by.
Listen, I get it. They had the insane defensive metrics last season, but we talk about this Thunder like they're this unbeatable super team. They snuck by the Indiana Pacers last year. The 5-seed Pacers. They snuck by, or 4-seed Pacers. They snuck by in 7 games. Don't get me wrong. It's the finals, high stakes. No, Thunder are incredible, but let's
you could
just
say
be
they
real
snuck by a Denver team with all the injuries that Denver was going through last year.
100% they did. 100% they did. But I mean, what a game plan with Caruso bodied up. What a fucking Game 7 game plan.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, that's awesome stuff.
I can transition to the next question. Who is the dark horse team to make a run? And I have another question to kind of pair up on this. Who is the dark horse team to make a run? Pairing with is there a Tyrese Halliburton-esque run that we could see this playoffs? I have 2 teams on here, one from each conference.
I'll answer. You have 2?
Yeah.
My mind initially went to Atlanta because I talked about it earlier, but I don't think they're going to beat Cleveland. So I'm not going to say them.
I love the matchup. When we get to and see like how everything unfolds and see what the matchups are, I'm so intrigued to see who draws Atlanta.
Mine though, listen, the Spurs have been so damn good, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that it is the 7 seed Los Angeles Clippers, potentially beating the Spurs in their first playoff series together on a Kawhi. He's already a year where he's going to be first team All NBA. On a Kawhi Leonard masterclass, we get Bannock Matherin exploding. I got the Clippers maybe upsetting the Spurs to shock the world. Everyone's waiting for the Wemby playoff run. I don't know. Kawhi's got something to say. Kawhi's been here. Kawhi's got 2 Finals MVPs. I'm going to go on a limb and say somehow, well, I guess they're the 8 right now, but in the play-in, let's say they beat the Suns in that play-in game and they get the 7 and they get to play San Antonio. I don't think they beat San Antonio, but I think there's a world where Kawhi Leonard is capable of doing that. So I'm going to say the Clippers is my team.
I'm going to go out east and say that it's stacking up very nicely for them right now. If they did get the 8 and not the 7, if they did get the 8, Philly would beat the Pistons with a hobbled Cade. I think they would. I think Philly with Joel Embiid playing with a hobbled Cade Cunningham possibly. I've heard nothing about when he's going to return. But if he's not healthy by playoff time, the first 1-8 series in the East could get real interesting. Because the Hornets are hot. The Sixers, if they have their big 3 healthy, I think Magic in the Heat, I think Pistons I'd still lean maybe Pistons just because Magic have been up and down all year and the Heat are kind of whatever. But if it's Philly or the Hornets or Toronto, then I'm like, Cade hobbled. I don't know. In a series setting, it could get interesting. So I'm looking at Philly out east, in my opinion. If everything, obviously, it's the big what if of the Eastern Conference, but everything's trending in the right direction for them health-wise. Maxey, PG, Edgecombe, Grimes, Joel Embiid, like if everything works out, them going into Detroit, they would feel uber confident against a young Detroit team, in my opinion.
Listen, I wanted to disagree originally because I was going to say, oh, look at what the Pistons have been doing since Cade's gone down. I love that they have a Duran matchup for an Embiid, like just whatever. At the end of the day, though, you're right. It's playoff basketball. You need your closer. You can't rely on Dennis Jenkins being a shot. You can't rely on Karis LeVert being your primary shot creator in a playoff series. You can't rely on Kevin Huerter to be the best shooter in the world in a playoff series. But what I will say, though, is they haven't just been beating bad teams since K's gone down. I mean, they beat the Warriors, the Lakers. They lost in overtime to a really hot Atlanta team. They beat Minnesota on the road. They lost in overtime to the Thunder. I know the Thunder have been banged up too, but it's the Thunder. They just win games. And they just beat a Toronto team without Cade. I think this team is to be respected. But that being said, this Sixers team is better than a 7 or 8, an 8 seed if that's what they end up getting as well. Mm-hmm. Especially with how Paul George just came back from injury. Like, what are we going to get from Embiid? You know, like he's going to be Tyrese Maxey. Like they have the better players in that series. So I love the pick. But I'm going to go ahead and pull what you kind of said about Cavs. It's like, hey, I've seen this story before. And I'm going to have some confidence.
Same with Philly.
And that's just what I'm going to do because it's like, I think that's going to be a popular upset pick as well. It very well could happen. They have the better players. I'm more playing devil's advocate right now. As in like, dude, like what happens when the Pistons just show up and they just have had that winning culture all year? And they're just like, no. Like, we've been playing a really consistent brand of basketball all year, and we're going to handle business. And Cade's going to get back in the second round, and we're going to beat the Cavs because we're better than the Cavs. That's just devil's advocate, though.
From looking it up, Cade, there's no timetable on it. Could be out until the playoffs, but with the lung thing, I think somebody said in our group chat, with CJ McCollum, who had it last year, but not playing for like basically a month, getting right into the playoffs, I think would be tough. And I think depending on who that matchup is, would be kind of tough for the Pistons, especially being the one playing an 8 seed with Embiid, Maxey, Paul George. Like that'd be a tough get in the first round. And I think for some reason, I just want to see Charlotte get to the postseason for real and then like play a Detroit team. And I'm just like, I think it would be so fun because they give me like, not saying they would, but they give me like weird, like we believe Warriors kind of vibes. Like they're just this fun team that can defend, do a bunch of different things really well with these young guys, like, kind of mixed bag over there. I just think it'd be a fun first round series. I think they get a game or two off Detroit if Cade's healthy and everything works out like that.
I agree. And like with Charlotte too, it's like They just have so many guys who like we've never seen play playoff basketball, obviously.
Yeah, I
But
just
like
want to see it. I just want
obviously,
to see him in the moment.
it would be
And then I can get
interesting.
into my Western Conference team, and I can stamp them because I was high on one, the Toronto Raptors going into the season. I said that they were going to be a lot better than people thought, and they're going to be pretty much, I hope so, above the plan, just to help back my take. Nick Gwynn is a Phoenix Suns fan. The Phoenix Suns have been the surprise that I saw coming. I said the Phoenix Suns were going to be a playing team. I said that they were going to be a lot better than people thought. One, because they're getting him back, and I think he just played last night, if I'm not mistaken. Dillon Brooks has been the biggest X factor for the Phoenix Suns this season.
Yeah, is he
And with
back?
the way, yeah, he's going to be back for sure. Like
Let's
he's
go.
ramping up now,
I
and he's
love
back
him.
on the courts.
Let's
So
go. I love him.
looking at this, I wish they could get the 6, but where I'm looking at in the standings, they're a couple games back. Devin Booker's been great all year. Jalen Green's finally ramping up, and he's another big X factor for them, being the second go-to scorer. I think just shouting out guys like them, kind of just talking about my take I had before the season. Come on, Maliwatch is finally getting more rotational minutes. I love their rotation of Maliwatch, Mark Williams, and Iguodala. I think all three of them bring something different to the table. Especially like Iguodala and Mark Williams, like those are going to be their two main guys playing in the playoffs. And then you got guys like switchable defenders, Ryan Dunn, Royce O'Neal, Dillon Brooks that can all take a matchup. And then you got guys like Grayson Allen, Colin Gillespie. You have these shooters everywhere. You got D-Book, Jalen Green that can go get it done, isolation. And then you just have a guy in Dillon Brooks that he's just going to go up, take the SGA assignment, take the Wemby assignment, take the Luka LeBron assignment, take the Kevin Durant. Like, you need somebody like that. And I just love this Phoenix team. I wish if they got the 6 somehow and the Rockets fell into the play-in, God, I'd be dissecting that Suns-Lakers matchup so much because I could see a world where the Suns could be really in that series more so than a Houston team with how Houston's looking right now. But I think even a Suns-Spurs first round would be a super fun series to watch because the Suns have size that can match up as best as you possibly can with Wemby, obviously. But they're also a younger team that ain't been to the playoffs before.
Yep.
It's a bunch of guys that have been to the playoffs over there in Phoenix. So I think the Suns have the ability to match up well with a lot of the teams that they could play in the first round with who their personnel is.
And like Dillon Brooks is, I mean, he's praying on getting the 6th seed. He wants that broad matchup so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. And a thing about Dillon Brooks, all seriousness, winning just follows that guy. We can, it's easy to be like, the Suns are just getting a bunch of really good guys playing good that usually don't when it comes to like Gillespie and him and whatever. At the end of the day, I think it's a pretty well-constructed roster. And you haven't even gotten Jalen Green the whole year, too. It's like, that's just a well-constructed roster at the end of the day. Like, you hit on it. They got guys in all types of roles that you need to win basketball games. But, like, Dillon Brooks, man, like I said, winning follows him. He's a culture guy. Like, that's a guy who, when you had Durant, there was obvious flaws with that team, and they went out sad the first year. Then they didn't even make it the next year. Listen, I'm not going to say they'll beat the Spurs or the Lakers or potentially the Thunder, but I can promise you with a guy like Dillon Brooks and a competitor like Devin Booker as well, they won't go out sad. They will not go out sad.
No.
I can stamp that. And even if that's a competitive 5, a respectable 5, sure, whatever. They will not go out sad. That team has been a grind team all year. They win close games. They can beat you in multiple different ways. Devin Booker he looks like such a veteran. It's so weird because he was the young guy in our league for so long. Mm-hmm. He is such a matured veteran. That's a guy that he's seen the elephant. He's been to the finals. Don't get me wrong. They don't have a team that can do that by any means. But I'm right with you. They will be a very exciting team to watch.
I'm looking at, if it does play out this way, the possible 8th seeds, and you're talking about Phoenix and the Clippers. When I'm looking at out west, Curry's apparently supposed to be ready to go by Sunday, and they're going to make some crazy push. I hope they get eliminated in the plan so we can get a higher draft pick, obviously, and be in the mix. But you can't obviously, I'm not going to hype up this Warriors team, no Jimmy Butler, but they could beat the Blazers, and they could beat the Clippers or something crazy, and they sneak in. I hope they don't, but you have Steph Curry healthy. Who knows? Anything could fucking happen in the play-in, obviously. But I'm looking at these matches that could possibly happen. Like, I don't want them to. I want them to fucking miss the play-in.
You don't deserve that, dude. You don't deserve to watch them get swept by it.
I don't want to.
We don't want to see Curry get swept. We don't need that.
I just think the Suns team and the Sixers teams, the way they match up with the 1-2 matchup being coming out of the play-in, I think is super interesting, super intriguing. I'm a little bit higher on the Suns team just because I think they match up a little bit better with OKC than San Antonio because dealing with Wemby is a problem. But I just think the Suns OKC 1-8 matchup that could possibly happen would not be like how Memphis was last year, where Memphis went out sorry as fuck. I can promise you that. Because I think the Suns would at least get a game, maybe two.
Well, they have Devin Booker.
Because
the Grizzlies didn't have a guy like that.
I just think it'd be interesting. I want to say the Suns are getting to the second round, but I can't go that far. I want to see the Suns go on a run, but I can't go that far.
OKC was better last year too, and I think it's okay to make that pick. I think that is a completely like when the spread comes out for or not spread, like over under how many games in a series. Just go ahead and take the over. I like that bet for you. I like that bet. And then for it to get to 5.
We can get into kind of like the last two questions was who's been the most surprising good or bad team? This could either be the team that surprised you of how good they were or the team that surprised you of how disappointing or bad they were.
I'll just be quick. Boston, good. I already kind of touched on that. Don't even need to say it. Without Tatum, I said all those reasons, right? But you let players that are so used to winning like that and have such a good culture, such a good coach, get doubted, like watch out. And then I know they ended up trading guys and they went into tank mode really early. I'll do a few for bad. I thought even without Tyrese, the Pacers were going to be able to be a respectable team just because that system they run and their style of play and how good of a coach Rick Carlisle is. And then, we got to say it, dude. It sucks. But even when he was healthy, it's not an excuse because you got a good Cooper Flag all the time. We both had Dallas being unbelievable. And I know AD got hurt, but even when he was playing, dude, it just did not look good. Like, we knew we were wrong maybe on opening night. And then obviously the Suns are a surprising good team too.
I can kind of agree with those, especially the Dallas one. We still never got to see Kyrie, AD, Cooper Flag all share the court, but Dallas is in a completely different direction. I think the Pacers one shows to the loss of Tyrese Haliburton and Miles Turner. I think losing somebody like Miles Turner, who's been that solid 5-man for so long in Indiana, losing him kind of left this big-ass void there. And I think that also hurt them on top of the Tyrese Haliburton situation, but them last year saying Tyrese Haliburton is the most overrated player in the league shows you his impact with how bad the Pacers were this year, and they kind of went to this tanking mode early and took a big gamble on getting Zubac.
Keep going, but I have a question I want to ask when you're done. Talk about this.
And then I would say the Magic I'm disappointed in. They've been dealing with a ton of injuries. Franz has barely played. They haven't even had their core 4 going into the year in Suggs, Bane, Paolo, and Franz. And I think that's also kind of helped. Yeah. He's been disappointing, but I think that's also helped Anthony Black kind of break out a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see. I want to see them get an upgrade at the 5, maybe a new coach in the building with how disappointing they've been, because I think their offense should be looking a lot better than it has been, even with some of the injuries. So I'm interested to see what they have, because they have all the depth. They have Bane, Black, Suggs, Wagner, Paolo, and then you have Tristan da Silva, who's having a really solid year with the more increased role and playing time. And where they ended up, they could get another guy in this year's draft. Like, they have a really good roster and a cool, fun roster, but it's just like, maybe it's not the right coach. I think they're just a little bit disappointing of a team. Surprising in Atlanta, because when they moved Trae Young and did the trades, I was like, oh, they're going into tank mode, everything else like that. They're going to be a competent playoff team for sure. It seems like, obviously, we could say the Pistons being as good as they are this year, that's a little bit surprising. I didn't think they were going to be this 55, almost 60 win good. Like, that's
there was an argument they were the best team in the league for a stretch this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I didn't even think to say them. Holy shit. Yeah. They were the best team in the league for a few weeks this year, for sure.
And before you say what you're about to say about the Pacers, the last team I wanted to bring up, with how bad they fucking started to be in the position they're in a tough Western Conference, shows just how good of a coach Ty Lue is, the Clippers. The Clippers saved the league from OKC getting a lottery pick, and they turned the corner. And they made maybe it's low-key a win-win trade, because the Clippers got some more youth with Benedict Mathurin, Darius Garland, and maybe they're just able to play a different style, a more up-tempo, fast-paced style over there. Even though it's a weird season, I don't think they're going to be finals contenders Shout out to the Clippers for turning the corner. And now they're 2 games above 500 when they started out, like 6-17 or whatever it was.
And they were getting fucking ran. Like, their differential was bad, too. I'll say this about the Clippers. I could have believed you if you said shit went bad and they ended up trading Harden because he's older. I wouldn't have believed you if you told me that they'd get Darius Garland out of it. For whatever reason, that seems like a really good deal. Like, it was good for both teams. But that's just like, I never would have thought he'd go there. I would have thought you were fucking crazy if you told me Zubac would not be on this team at the end of the next season after how elite he was last year. One of the best centers in the league last year. I got to say, though, this is arguably Kawhi's best season of his whole career. I know he had that year with Toronto where he won it all, but just regular season, numbers-wise speaking, and how it's looked, dude, this might be his best season of his career. Now, I can do a real good transition because I was talking about Zubac, and I want to ask you a question. Because I think Pacers fans are really excited when they made the deal because it was kind of confusing what the actual, like, shit was about it. But, I mean, I saw a tweet the other day, and it was like it was your guy, Caleb Wilson, highlights. And it was like something like, do you think Pacers fans regret trading for Zubac and wish they could just sit pretty with, like, pick 5, 6, or 7 and get a Caleb Wilson maybe, or just have a guaranteed top 10 guy in this class? Listen, Zubac is an incredible player, but how much anxiety are Pacers about to have on draft lottery night? I mean, dude, that trade is like, that's a fucking... However it ends up working out, I don't love the fit of Zubac in how the Pacers want to play, at least how I watched them play when they made that run. You brought up Miles Turner, and that question instantly went to my head. Miles Turner, say what you want about him, he was a little disappointing for my Bucks this year. What they had to do to go on that run and that pace of play they played at, no pun intended. I mean, Miles Turner was perfect for that. I don't know if Zubac is perfect for that. He does a lot of great things. Imagine draft night pops up and the Clippers are picking 6 and they got Mathurin. That is terrible. If I'm a Pacers fan, I wish we could do it all over and take that back.
Yeah, it's a big gamble. And you're looking at, like, style of play and what Zubac's fit is because he's not a spacer like Miles Turner is. So, like, is that going to bog down the offense in some ways? I think it's a gamble for sure. But I also look at some of the guys the Pacers, quote-unquote, could have traded for, could have gotten to be the 5-man. Nobody's going to fit like Miles Turner was. Like, nobody's going to be that guy. He was with the franchise forever and everything else like that. His spacing, his shot blocking ability, the way he was able to move on the basketball court, I don't think they'll ever find that again. But it's also like they're taking the gamble because there's a world where they get Zubac and the 3rd pick, and they're able to get Boozer, Caleb Wilson, and have Zubac. But it's also the world of, like, the Clippers. The Clippers did a great job in this trade because they are finally starting to see the future. And I think a big reason why they did that trade was to get off Zubac's money so they have more open books and flexibility long term. And not this upcoming free agency class, but the next one. But it's also looking at Kawhi Leonard. He could be on the move this offseason. There might not be a better time to trade Kawhi Leonard and get off and get out of this kind of era because of how good he's playing. This is probably the most... Yeah, this is the most and the highest return that you could get on somebody like Kawhi Leonard, who has the injury concerns and everything else like that around him. This is the best chance you can possibly have to trade him this offseason. So they're like, fuck it. If we end up getting the pick and the Pacers drop to 6, we'll get Keaton Wagner, Kingston Flemings, or whoever they want to get at 6, and then move Kawhi Leonard. They could hear me out. They could realistically
pick 6. They're trading up to the top 3.
Yeah,
they're trading Kawhi. They're trading Kawhi too. They're going to trade up if they steal that Pacers pick, and they're going to trade Kawhi. They're going to move up for Peterson or DeBanza, 100%.
And in a world
because there's too many guards in that range, they have Garland.
Yeah, hear me out. For fun, imagine this scenario plays out. Draft lottery hits. Bam. Pacers fuck around, keep their pick. They get 3. The Clippers lost in a tough 6 games to the Spurs or whatever. Kawhi Leonard was great. Kawhi was great. They could still, looking at some of the teams, who's trying to win next year, that could be in picking that high.
Trade clause?
I don't know. I think he'd go somewhere like Golden State.
He loves Los Angeles so damn much.
Yeah,
I bet he might have some shit like that. But
so
I don't know.
say the Warriors are picking anywhere from 6 to 10, 6 to 11. The Clippers could still end up with a pick anyways if they move Kawhi. And I think, truthfully, I think the plan is to trade Kawhi because I think they're seeing the value rise, and I think they're seeing this different timeline. They're trying to get younger, so I think a world taking that gamble on losing their pick, but eventually I think they see the writing on the wall in a possible Kawhi trade to even still get more draft capital. So I see both sides of it. I think I like the Pacers side maybe a little bit more because if you have Zubac, who's a really good big, and then you're just adding a top 1 to 4, like you're adding the premier. Like imagine adding a Caleb Wilson just off your fucking bench. Like that, like they're taking the gamble because the Pacers truly believe they can win a title next year with Halliburton, Zubac, and a top 4 pick possibly. And even if they don't get a top 4 pick, even if they don't, you still have Zubac, and then you can just address in free agency. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying though. The idea of the trade is amazing. Like it is. I like that, but it's more the fit for me. It's not even about the pick stuff as much. It's more the fit with Zubac and Siakam together and just Zubac in that system in general. It could be easy for me to say, hey, let's say you get AJ DeBanza in this draft. I don't like AJ and Siakam playing together. But are you going to move off of a guy who was a part of your finals run just to make it so that Zubac and DeBanza can play? Maybe you do. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know where they're at with it. That's my thing. Like, because I'll tell you right now, this sounds really nice, but if you go Hallie, Nemhard, DeBanza, Siakam, Zubac, that is a really good lineup. I don't like DeBanza, Siakam, Zubac fit together, though. Mm-hmm. That is so far off from what they were trying to do or what they did to almost win a fucking title. DeBanza needs to clear paint. Siakam wants to fucking get touches. Siakam wants to work just like DeBanza does in different ways. But you know what I mean? Like, see, I don't like this yet. That's why a lot of Pacers people want DeBanza. That's why you and me have been so consistent about Peterson to Indiana because he fits anywhere, no matter what. So that's
I've been mocking a lot and just seeing like if it did turn out that way to where I'm like, what if you just had Cam Boozer off your bench as your 6? Like, what if you just rolled with Cam Boozer with more size and his IQ playing in that kind of a system? Like, being just a smart guy, you were on the pick and roll with Hallie. Now you have Cam Boozer able to make a smart play in the short roll. Like I like Peterson and Cam Boozer to Indiana. I like those fits. I see the jumble with DeBanza and Caleb Wilson.
I think you cash in on Boozer and make him a starter and get something out of Siakam then at that point.
I don't know. It'd be tough because I think the Pacers truly believe that they can do what and take the gamble and get back to where they are.
2 for that. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's interesting. It's an interesting.
I'm not even joking.
Trade.
You should clip the fucking end of this and just do a Pacers Clippers trade.
Yeah.
Review.
That lottery night is going to be so crazy.
I'm dead ass.
That Pacers lottery
did like 10 minutes on the Pacers.
Pacers is going to be a good because I was going to say for the last question was who is the team that didn't make the playoffs that could have a major push last year or next year? So the team that didn't make it this year. But it makes the push next year.
I'll answer with 2.
I have a sneaky one.
Okay, I'll go quick with these, and then I want you to go and say yours. I'll make this quick. But because the first team I'm going to say is the Pacers. I think that's an obvious answer.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm going to tell you right now is on that draft lottery night, I got 2 friends who are very big Pacers fans. I'm going to make sure that they are together watching the lottery. And I'm going to grab a 12-pack of garage beer, Coors Light, and I'm going to go watch that fucking lottery with them. And deep down, I am going to be praying that the Clippers steal that damn pick. Because that will hurt them. I ain't going to lie, that might hurt them as much as the night Game 7 did. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Because that would just remind you of Game 7, and if Allie didn't get hurt, my goodness. Now, my other team that I think... Listen, I think the Jazz is a popular pick for this. I'm excited to hear what your sneaky one is. For me, it's the Dallas Mavericks. Because I think that we can just look at we can just use our eyes and watch the games. And Cooper Flag is going to be entering pretty elite company. They still have all those assets that they need to have. I do get a little worried when I hear that Mark Cuban saying, I think I sold it to the wrong people, blah, blah, blah. Either way, if they're able to manage their assets, they already are going to get a pick. And if they can manage their assets outside of that and hit in the draft and put Cooper Flag in a good position, I think they're back as a playoff team. So I'm going to go Dallas.
My sneaky one, a lot of things have to happen. A lot of things have to go right. They have a first rounder this year. I'm going off of what I've heard just to kind of be a little bit different. Obviously, the Jazz are a popular one. Dallas, Pacers. You could throw Washington in there with Trae Young, Anthony Davis. They're a big what-if team
Washington
going into next year.
Could be one. Yeah.
I'm going to say a team because everything that I've heard is that they're going to be one of the only buyers with a ton of cap space and the incentive to be having to be good next year because they do not own their pick next year. Goes to Houston in a swap. I think something's going to happen in these playoffs to where we're going to see a big time move in terms of a trade by the Brooklyn Nets this offseason. In the Eastern, because I'm doing more research on the teams that didn't make the playoffs, kind of getting my mind right to what they could be looking to do this offseason. And looking at the Brooklyn Nets, everything is pointing in the direction of them being buyers. They're in a sneaky big market. They don't own their draft picks after this year because they have the one more swap with Houston next year. You already have a guy in MPJ who's just going to be able to fit with whoever you bring on the roster, or you could flip MPJ. I think it's a good thing to keep him. Yes, they did have a lot of draft picks that could be looking like whiffs, but they have an open cap sheet and they have capital to trade for a lot of guys. And when I was doing their kind of offseason stuff, they have the most incentive to buy and be good next year and be solid. I'm not saying this team's gonna be a contender or a bona fide playoff team. I'm just saying they're gonna be up there with the Heat and Hawks, Toronto, what they were this year, kind of in between teams of playing playoffs. I think
I'm all about that. Keep going. Sorry.
I think what's gonna happen? They're gonna.
I was gonna ask, what's the move? What's the move they make?
I think when you're looking at them in the draft, no matter where they end up, we're not gonna talk about it because we don't know the lottery situation. I think the move that they buy in, the move that they buy in on, and everybody's low on them. I think Ja Morant finds his way to Brooklyn. For one of the guards that they just drafted, I think it's a swap with Claxton and one of the Traore, and they get Ja Morant. I think it's some sort of Ja Morant, MPJ, whoever they draft in the draft this year, which could be Braden Burries, somebody that fits what they want to do. And then I think then at the start of the offseason, you're looking at like, damn, they took a snag on like a restricted guy and ended up getting him like a Peyton Watson, somebody like a Jonathan Kuminga in that realm. And they just have this solid team around Ja Morant. And then we see Ja Morant in a new system with a good coach in Jory Fernandez. And they're just like this fun kind of team, kind of like we're seeing like the Suns be this fun kind of team. I think they have a team with an open cap sheet and the incentive to buy. And when you have guys that are low-hanging fruit and stars, Zion Williamson's played the most games he's played in a while this year. He's looking good again. Zion, Ja Morant, these guys that are on super buy lows, I didn't even throw in. Yeah, Trey Murphy. I didn't even throw in like a crazy Giannis thing. They have this open cap. They're a team with a sneaky big market, capital in the trades, a first rounder this year, to where you're going to look at their roster in August and be like, damn, Brooklyn kind of got a little fun roster going over there. They traded for Ja Morant. They got MPJ. They got Braden Burries out of the draft, or they got Keaton Wagner out of the draft. Like, they have some shit going over there. And I just think, I'm not saying this team's going to be a contender, kind of giving my random case on the Brooklyn Nets, kind of putting my track record out there. But I was right about the Suns. I was right about Toronto going into the year. No. I just think they're going to be this fun-ass team next year, like where you're just like, damn, they're like the Nets team that had D'Lo and Dinwiddie before the KD, Kyrie, Harden shit, where it was just like, damn, they're kind of a fun-ass team. Like, that's why I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to be.
I love everything you're saying, and I agree. My only problem, and it throws me off about them, is because when they made the Mikal Bridges trade, I thought they were the biggest geniuses in the world. And then they go into draft night, and they have one of the worst draft nights ever. And I just don't know what to think of them going forward because I can't decide. I just don't know. Like, they could have done anything but what they did on draft night. And I think they'd be in a better spot. That's my only thing. It is interesting, though, when you think about them, because they are that team that has the assets, the potential. And there are going to be teams who are pretty greedy here going forward. There are going to be players who are able to be bought low. So I like that pick a lot, especially in the East, especially in a market like Brooklyn. I would be all about it. I like it. I can't disagree much. My only thing is I just don't know what to make of their front office.
Yeah. They would have to get a top 5 pick. I would say for everything of like what I'm saying to work out, they would need to get like Caleb Wilson, Cam Boozer-esque, then trade for Ja, then have MPJ on top of it, and everything else like that. A lot of things would have to go right, but they're my team where I'm just like,
or you just get
off season I'm gonna be or something like that, or I'm just gonna be like, damn, I'm gonna be paying attention to the Brooklyn Nets. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm gonna be watching Brooklyn Nets this offseason.
I like it. I think basketball would be a little better if Brooklyn was really good. Why not?
But been a lot of talk about college, a lot about NBA, kind of mixed it in there at the end as well. We'll be back with kind of our playoff predictions episode as well in the next coming weeks, as once we get the plan set and everything else over these next kind of long weeks of the NBA season. That's why I'm glad we got March Madness to watch, because these are kind of just the last final games before the playoff stretch. We'll be back with our playoff predictions episode next couple of weeks. But anything else you want to add, Cole?
I am a little pissed off because I had a thought I was going to say after that Brooklyn spiel you gave, but I can't remember it. So probably not, because that might add another 10 minutes. So,
but we can wrap it up there.
We'll get to it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning into the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.